So General McChrystal, 4-star general. This is not a regular general. This is a guy that was under Obama. I had him on the podcast, I think, 7 years ago. So very good conversation. He wrote a book on leadership, phenomenal book that he wrote on leadership. One of our sources, she sent us this, and this is a conversation that's being had. It's a follow-up from the other conversation. The other one was more about military-industrial complex. This is about what's most likely going to be happening with Putin. I want to get your reaction on this. Go ahead, Rob.
It's taboo to talk about, but I am worried about the nuclear aspect of this war. If a tactical nuke gets used or whatever in Ukraine,
I think,
is that a real risk?
Well, the answer is you never know with Russia. You never know with Putin. So the answer is I could never say no. There's no obvious better solution in Russia. I think Putin ought to go, but there's nobody that I'm aware of standing on the wings.
It seems like there's a lot more radical people standing on the wings too, which is concerning.
I just think that where we are now, to sort of take it back, we are saying that Russia must fail. That to me means regime change in Russia. So our policy is unofficially regime change in Russia.
And that's scary when you think of how Putin views it, because that's existential to him.
Exactly. I mean, if he views it that way, and that's how I connect the dots, I'm not sure we got there intentionally or unintentionally, but if we are angling for replacement of his regime, what will he do to survive in power?
It's a scary thought.
So what's your reaction to that?
First, one of our contributors got him fired originally. Michael Hastings was a contributor for Young Turks. Then he wrote the piece at Rolling Stone about McChrystal, and that's what got him fired. In terms of his actual commentary, I think he's just speculating. So I'm worried about a couple of things. I think he's right that Russia might use tactical nukes if they're put in a corner. I think he's right that if your policy was regime change, that would be a disastrous policy. But I think he's speculating that we're going for regime change. I hope not. I haven't seen any indication of that, and I think that would be a terrible policy, and I think that's why they haven't said anything along the lines of regime change.
Do you think, for example, you're a paranoid guy. You're from Turkey, right? I'm from Iran, okay? And I'm Armenian.
Yep.
So we're not supposed to get along. We have civil conversations, no problem. We're good to go, right? But they say the top 5 most angriest people in the world. You know who are in the top 5? Have you seen this list or no? Statista?
I haven't, but if you ask Twitter, if you'd ask Twitter, they say me. But
pull up, pull up
types
the list.
of people, countries.
Check this out. Look at this here. The top 5 angriest. This is going to be classic if you actually pull up the right list. Check this out right there. Look at this. Zoom in. Number 1 is Lebanon. Number 2 is Turkey. Look who's number 3. So we got a Turk and an Armenian sitting right next to each other now, right?
Totally.
Okay.
Well, if you think that's bad, a Turk and an Armenian sit next to each other every day on the Young Turks because my co-host is Armenian.
And she.
So this is
Anna.
Yeah.
She's Armenian.
So this is great. So but the point being, like, we're naturally paranoid. You're paranoid. I think you come across as a paranoid guy. I'm a very paranoid guy. Living the life I've lived, I don't trust everything easily. So I'm kind of like, that kind of was a scary comment they made. For example, when they say things like the following, when Klaus Schwab says, or Bill Gates in 2015, or Jeb Bush said in the 2015 campaign or whatever, 2015 or was it 2020? I think it was 2015, 2016, when he says, we have to be ready. We need a leader that knows how to handle a national crisis that could happen, such as a pandemic. I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, it's a pandemic, and well, we haven't had a pandemic for many, many years. And Bill Gates told me, but pandemic, we have to be ready for a pandemic. Okay. So when they say stuff like that, to me, sometimes I go like, got it. I kind of know what you're saying. Like when a person comes and tries to sell you something, and I'm an insurance person. I've been in insurance for my entire life. So if they come and say, hey, Cenk, what are you going to do if you die? How's your family going to be taken care of? There's a part of me that's like, are you and my wife talking? Is there something that's going on why you want to sell me a $5 million policy? But the natural instinct is a little bit paranoia. So when I hear him say, if they're saying this, you best believe they're saying it because they're creating the boogeyman, the Hegelian dialectic, whatever you want to call it, to put the fear in before we say, no, we told you, this is a very problematic man. We have to get him to be replaced. Do you think there's any indication of a future truth telling us that, in their own political way, because they're more pros at propaganda than you and I are, we got to get rid of this guy. The world's a safer place if we get rid of Putin. And then all of a sudden they get rid of him. So one, you're saying no because you already addressed that. No, I don't think that's really what's going on. But two, let's say they do. Let's say they succeed. Let's say in the next 6, 12 months, 18 months, they get what they want. Assuming that's what they want. What happens next if Putin gets replaced?
Look, I despise Putin, and I've made no, bones about that. I've been very clear. I've been so clear. Russia Today asked me for interviews right after I criticized Putin, and they're like, "Oh, well, we'd just like to interview." I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting. Why today? Well, what would you like to talk about?" They're like, "The Armenian genocide." I was like, interesting, interesting. So Putin is apparently perfectly aware of how much I despise him, but I think the idea of getting rid of him is absolutely disastrous. So if I was advising the president, I would say, how in the world do you know who would replace him, right? So maybe it's a much better guy. Maybe it's a much worse guy.
Yeah.
The guy from the Wagner group.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
warlord, right?
That's a huge possibility. And that guy is much more of a warlord, and he's a private mercenary and very dangerous, etc. So as much as
Pergosian, this guy.
Yeah, that's right. And as much as I think Putin has done great damage to the world, I don't think it's our business to go interfere with how they're selecting their leaders. Look, I think a lot of our homelands have terrible leaders. I don't like Erdogan in Turkey. I think Netanyahu in Israel is a disaster. I can go on, right? But that doesn't mean we got to go meddle in their business and tell them what to do, right? And so, hey, get out of Ukraine, perfectly legitimate. But the minute you step an inch into Russia or Russian politics, it is a disaster. Do not do that. Get the hell out of there as soon as you can.
What success have we had, the United States, in any sort of regime change in the last 50 years?
Never.
Name one that regime change has worked out well. Gaddafi in Libya, all right? Iraq, Saddam Hussein, the list goes on. I mean, can you think of one?
Yeah. Well, look, Saddam was a terrible guy. Gaddafi was a terrible guy, but did we replace them with folks who are better? I mean, how many people did we kill to get there? Hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqi civilians killed, let alone 50,000 Americans maimed over there and killed. And we go on and on, our treasure, our blood. So the whole country is sick of these wars. The only people who want the wars are the establishment. And why does the establishment want it? Because lobbyists win everything. Yeah. And so, and we have several different lobbyists that are pushed for these kind of wars. So you've got the obvious, you've got the oil guys that are constantly pushing for war in the Middle East, right? And in the case of Russia, you've got not only those guys, but you've got the guys who say, hey, I'd rather sell natural gas to Europe than Russia. And if you think that's not a consideration, you're incredibly naive. Money makes the world go around. So if you want to know what people are going to do, look at where the money is, and you'll know exactly where they're going to go.
Arms dealers, military-industrial complex.
And by the way, bankers who speculate on it, there's a ton of people who make
traders.
profit. Yeah.
And Jen, what you were saying, like, so you're more fearful if Trump comes in about nuclear war and stuff. Obviously, I think we're closer to it now with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. I worked at a nuclear missile base in Montana. When people are like, I don't trust this guy because he has his finger on the button, it's a complete fallacy. To launch a nuke, the process of what it takes to actually launch something is absurd. Like, it's insane. People think that somebody's sitting there like this. That's all BS. Do you think we would be where we are with Ukraine and Russia and the whole situation right now if Trump was still in? Or do you think regardless it was going to happen no matter what?
I think that Trump would have let Putin take as much of Ukraine as he wanted, to be honest. And so you can make two arguments about that. You can say, hey, you know what? If you just let Russia take Ukraine, there's less war. Boom, they took it, it's over, right? Yeah. And what do we care if they take Ukraine? Yeah. So I think that's a callous argument, but that's an argument you could make. That's not an argument I agree with. But in terms of the whole idea that I'm going to settle Russia and Ukraine in a day, come on, stop being a jackass. And even MAGA doesn't believe that. I mean, it's absurd, right?
Did you see what Zelensky had to say about that?
Yeah, but I want to say one more thing about your question.
Yeah.
Look, North Korea developed 8 nukes while Trump was president.
Yep.
He's all bluster. He's all talk. He has no action. All Kim Jong-un had to do was send him one letter saying that, hey, man, hey, bro, I really like you, right?
And he crossed the DMZ and he actually stepped into North Korea.
And then he came out and said, that they're sending love letters to one another and that they're in love. What kind of loser says that about, by the way, a communist dictator? If Obama or Biden had said he was in love with a communist dictator, MAGA would have ripped their heads off. Trump says that they excuse everything he does. So I don't think he's tough. And I'm not sure that he's going to avoid war. I mean, did the 8 nukes North Korea develop make us closer or further away from war? I don't know. If you had attacked them earlier, they would have obliterated Seoul, South Korea, let alone Japan. So these are difficult questions, and people keep saying they're easy when they're not easy.
Let's stay there. This is good. So let's stay on this topic. In regards to Trump love, sometimes, I've been in sales for a long time, and I see how some people sell. Some people sell through flattery. Some people get their ways through making you, there's different ways of selling. Some people sell through consultative closing. If I were you, I would do this. Some sell through, hey, you're so beautiful. You're so this. You're so about. You're so smart. Like
that instantly worked.
But yeah, well, yeah.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, buddy.
What do you need?
$100 billion, Cenk. We got to get to war.
So, but the point is, like, I watch how different presidents sell. Like, when Obama went to Cuba at the baseball game and they're sitting there like, oh my God, I can't believe it. All right, so Obama also has his stuff with who he sat down, but we can go with everybody that's done this, okay? Trump has his own way of selling that he's been selling in New York. Whether it sells or not, we were at peace for 4 years. We haven't talked ISIS since 2014, 2015. So that is the part with him. How he's going to fix Ukraine, Russia in 24 hours, everybody wants to know how he's going to do it. He's presented it, whether it's going to work out or not. Most people don't believe it's going to take 24 hours. So I'm going to be there with you on that. But just the one part when you think about this whole situation with, what they're doing. Okay, so Putin says Russia put nuclear bombs in Belarus as warning to the West. This was a couple weeks ago. This was a month ago when he said that. Even recently, he's like, hey, you're playing with fire. Now, at this point, Putin's given a nuclear threat how many times? I don't know how many times. I'm going to say more than 5 times.
Probably.
So if you're going to do it, either do it or you don't do it, right? So it's either you're over bluffing your hand now and no one knows you got pocket aces, you're full of it, you don't have ace king, and you're just kind of like acting like you got a card, you got a 2-10. Or you have a decent hand, but you don't want to go all in because you want me to think you have aces, but you got pocket 10s, let's just say, right? Okay, fair, cool. But should we sit there and not take the threat of the possibility that it could happen and us keep feeding Ukraine and giving them more and more and more ammunition, playing more and more and more proxy war? And, if you brought up, I think you brought up Cuban Missile Crisis earlier. And by the way, there was a part of it that Turkey and Italy were involved.
Yeah, that's right.
Where
Turkey saved America.
Yeah, essentially where he said, hey, you guys got to, your missiles, you got to give them up or you guys can't use them. And then boom, it kind of came back around. What if JFK didn't do that? What if that wasn't the strategy? Came out years later. We didn't find out about it at the beginning because it was kind of low key. Yeah, can you pull that up? Turkey, Italy, is this the one? Yeah, this is the one. Sealing the deal with Italy and Turkey 60 years ago during April 1963, the U.S. Air Force took steps to implement the final stage of the secret U.S.-Soviet deal that helped resolve the Cuban Missile Crisis with the dismantling of the Jupiter missiles deployed in Italy and Turkey. So that some people could say this is going to save the world. This is going to save the World War III. This was like a big deal that happened. Okay.
Yep.
So good for JFK for kind of taking that route. Flip that on Biden. I don't know, man. I mean, you're feeding the machine nonstop to get Putin where you're cornering the guy. Either do something about it and get the guy to fall, or you're publicly saying, here's who we're going to keep empowering. And then the argument then comes back. Remember John Bolton? Is that his name, John Bolton? John Bolton, the war guy, right? That hates Trump. And, he's like all about war. Yeah.
That's
okay. So what happened? What happened with Republicans being the party that was the party of military-industrial complex and, hey, the movie Vice and look at the Rumsfeld and look at the chain, look at these guys, look how much money is being made behind clubs. All they want to do is war. Republicans want a war every day. Dude, it's like right now, the Democrats are the ones that want war, and Trump, the one that everybody hates from the left, that's the guy that didn't want war. He says, all I want people to stop dying.
Yeah.
I want people to stop dying, right? So how did the Democrats all of a sudden become the military-industrial complex party?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly how. Follow the money. Everything is in the money. So Trump is not actually anti-war. He just makes money in a different way than the Democrats make it. Okay. So, for example, Trump has made money from the Russians, the Saudis, et cetera, in his private life, right? So when they asked him about the Saudis, he said, look, they buy my apartments for $40 million. What do you want me to do? Not like them? Right.
But no one died.
Okay. No. I know. I'm just telling people's motivations.
There's
right?
ways to make money without killing people.
Yeah. And so in that case, that's actually to Trump's benefit, because he's saying, look, I make money from the Russians. His sons say all the time, we got all our money from the Russians. So in that case, yeah, I mean, if you're Ukrainian, you're not happy if Trump wins.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you're an American who doesn't want any piece of that war, then I get where you're coming from. Why did the Democrats switch and become military industrial complex guys? Because everyone takes donor money. And the Democrats now take more donor, not more money than the Republicans do. The Republicans are even more corrupt, but they do take more money than Trump, because Trump is having trouble getting money from donors. It's not that he wouldn't, it's just that he can't, right? So he doesn't feel as indebted to them. Whereas Biden feels indebted, and Hillary Clinton and all of them do, to every company you could imagine, including defense contractors. So when defense contractors say jump, he says how high. So I'll give you an example from the Ukraine war. So they did that accounting trick. I don't know if you guys caught it about a month ago or so. They said, oh, it turns out we can spend twice as much money in Ukraine and give them twice as many weapons. And the accounting trick was, oh, we're going to pretend that these things that we're selling them are new, but they're not selling them new weapons. They're selling them old weapons, right? So it's an accounting gimmick. Why did they do that? Yeah, ostensibly to help Ukraine more in its fight against Russia, but also because then the defense contractors would make twice as much money. And all of a sudden you saw every corporate Republican, which is nearly 100% of them, and every corporate Democrat, which is about 80% of them, all jump up and go, yes! Oh, okay, accounting error, of course. All the Democrats cry about, oh, defense is spending too much, etc. Or not all the Democrats, some of them do. And then what do? Rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp. Yes, the defense is awesome. Give them everything they want. Give them $100 billion more than they want. The Pentagon gets audited. They can never pass an audit. They waste half our money, $400 billion in the toilet to the most corrupt people on earth every single year, while the Democrats, the Republicans, and corporate media, both mainstream media and Fox News, celebrate. They go out with pom-poms. Yay, war, war, war. Defense contractors are the best. So yes, the number one problem that the Democratic Party has, and I talk about it in my book, is that they are totally captured now by lobbyists and by corporate cash.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.